I'm 27 years old now, which means that when I grew up, I played games like Frogger and Shrek. The only horror game that I played growing up was Slender Man, which scared the bejesus out of me. But anyway, since Slender Man, there have been a ton of horror games to release. One of which being Poppy Playtime, which has since become one of the biggest games in the entire world. But it's a game that I don't really know much about. And considering that my channel is slowly turning into a horror channel, it only seems right that I educate myself on Poppy Playtime. So today, we're checking out the complete timeline and lore of Poppy Playtime. So strap in, grab some popcorn, and let's learn about Poppy Playtime.
Poppy Playtime has one of the most complex stories out there, with hours of lore spanning across games, spin-offs, books, ARGs, and more. But today, I've put every single piece of the story we have gotten so far all together to create my complete Poppy Playtime timeline.
Wait a minute! I thought Poppy Playtime was like one game that came out and blew up. I didn't realize that there's multiple games, there's side games, there's stories, there's books. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we see hieroglyphs in the great ancient pyramids of Poppy Playtime. Like, I didn't know he had this much motion.
Our tale starts in the year 1930 with a man named Elliot Ludwig. Elliot was your average everyday family man with a wife and a daughter living a happy life. But Elliot, an inventor at heart obsessed with creating things, had an idea. He wanted to create his very own toy factory that would produce and provide toys for millions of children around the world, leading to him founding Playtime Co. Where from here, Elliot went to work, spending hours upon hours working at the factory trying to start up the brand and get it on its feet. But while trying to serve families around the world, he started to forget his own, not being able to be at home as much with his wife and daughter due to the long grueling hours the factory demanded, often leaving his house during early hours of the morning and returning at late hours in the night.
Bro is grinding. I respect it, honestly. Bro is grinding, maybe neglecting some family interaction. That's part of the game, though, because there's people out there that are lions that will do anything to be the best and make it in the world. And those are the people that you gotta compete with, and they don't care about their family. So I respect it, but I see where this is going. He's gonna make some toys, and eventually he's gonna get so annoyed at his wife that his wife is yapping at him all the time. So he makes a toy, calls it Poppy. So now it's a replacement for him. You see where this is going? All right, this is getting out of control. Let's lock back in.
He's seen as creepy by his neighbors even. And soon enough, his wife could no longer take it, packing up and leaving him and his daughter.
Are you kidding me? He has aspirations to be the best. He's doing this for you. He's doing this for his family, to create generational wealth, and you leave him? That's crazy. 1950, skipping 20 years.
Elliot Ludwig had spent the last 2 decades trying to create products to no real avail. Nothing really seemed to stick with the public. That is until the year 1950, when Elliot would create the product that would change his entire life. Poppy Playtime. Poppy Playtime was a baby doll toy, which was a super common thing in the 1950s, but Elliot's was extra special because she, unlike the rest, could seemingly talk back and forth with children, making her feel almost lifelike.
I'm a real girl.
Wait, it just says she's $6? I'm pretty sure back then that's how much cars were. I swear.
Just like you.
Along with her hair being scented like poppy flowers, a soothing scent that would calm down the children that played with it. This release would explode the company and was extremely successful, finally giving Elliot everything he ever wanted. His toys were now quickly in the hands of millions of children, and now that his company was growing, he was able to hire new employees, with the first notable one being Thomas Clark, hired in 1955, while also creating the Grab Pack at some point, a backpack with retractable hands at the sides that employees could use to reach faraway items at ease to help with efficiency. And furthermore, Elliot used this success to start doing factory toys.
Wait, that grab pack seems so random. What? That's like an engineering revolution. He's like Tony Stark making a grab pack, but he made the toy. How does the grab pack and how does that go together at all?
Allowing families to visit the factory and see how everything was being created, expanding the company's growth and and brand more, along with working on new products like the Doughy Dough, a Play-Doh type toy led by the mascot Doughy the Doughman, that was another massive success, propelling the company more. Although, despite all of this success, at some point during this period, Elliot Ludwig's daughter would tragically pass away. And just like that, Elliot's family that inspired him to provide toys for millions of others was now gone,
What
putting
happened?
him into a deep depression.
She must have been like in her at least 20s at this point because she was a baby. The wife left him. Fast forward to 20 years, now we're here. You know, that the way time works would mean that the daughter is at least 20 years old. She might be 30. What happened?
However, Elliot wasn't just going to stop there. If the factory is what dragged his family away, then maybe it's what could bring it back together. He had
What?
thousands of these lifelike Poppy dolls laying around, so being an inventor, he wondered if he could use one of them as a new shell for his daughter and attempt to revive her himself. It was a Hail Mary to say the least, but it was worth a try. And after experimenting on her with the slim but non-zero chance to save her life, magically it worked.
I thought she's dead already. How are you gonna save her life? This also is scarily similar to the story of Five Nights at Freddy's, which we also reacted to. That was insane. But so far, there's definitely a lot of similarities with like putting kids in the dolls, or in the Five Nights at Freddy's case, animatronics.
As a matter of fact, his daughter was back as a living and breathing Poppy
How did
doll.
he do
She could
that?
move, think, talk, and feel. Elliot's daughter was revived, but this situation scarred him deeply as he realized he hadn't been spending any time with his daughter he almost just lost while working 24/7. So instead, he would develop himself a new home inside of the factory where they both lived, right across from his office,
This is literally the Five Nights at Freddy's story.
allowing him to spend more time with her during the busy hours and still have that semblance of the family life he lost when originally starting the company.
1960s. She's 30 something now.
Playtime Co. was doing better than ever, riding off of Poppy Playtime's success. And naturally, Elliot Ludwig expanded the company further by creating the Make a Friend machine in 1960, which
Wait a minute though. If he's like so easily put his daughter's like consciousness into this doll, that would make him like a trillionaire because everybody on planet Earth would want that. If somebody died and you're telling me you can just like upload their consciousness into a doll, everybody would do that. That's where the business is. The business is there. Unless he's like trying to keep it a secret so nobody knows. If his sole goal is to like make as much money as possible, he would be the first trillionaire ever.
was an interactive machine used for tours where children could create another new toy, Cat Bee, along with more new products like Braun the Dinosaur in 1961 and Boxy Boo in 1966, presumably along with many other undated toys to keep expanding the company's growth. But Elliot, again, was still a family man and wanted to help even more children around the world outside of just giving them toys. And at an unknown point during this success, he would create the Young Geniuses program, a program where many gifted children around the world would be hand-selected by Elliot Ludwig after applying to come to the Playtime Co. factory and actually learn how the toys are produced through their factories and innovation labs, with the hope that eventually when they grow up, they would take over the company as Elliot and his many colleagues aged away. Many children would be selected for this program, like Bruno White, who will be important later, but the most special one of them all was a boy named Harley Sawyer, an intentionally isolated child with no interest for friendships or cares for others, with a rough life back at home, but despite this was an extremely intelligent and focused.
I gotta say, it is kind of weird that he's bringing like kids to take over his company. I understand that he's wanting to put somebody else in place of him for when he passes. That totally makes sense. But why not somebody who has been working there for like 20 years, who has been like your right-hand man, for example? Why are you trying to hire or like get like a 15-year-old kid to run the whole company? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Obsessed with the scientific process. When selected for the Young Geniuses program, he saw how dedicated Elliot Ludwig and Playtime Co. was for innovation, which enlightened him further, giving him purpose and determination motivation he never had before. Joining the program and getting to work on these creations with Elliot finally made the troubled young boy happy. However, there was a big looming issue.
Watch. They're going to agree on almost everything, but then the young kid is going to have a different, like, overall vision, which is something that Elliot does not want. But eventually Elliot's going to die. He's going to put this kid in place, and that kid is going to continue to do his own vision, which is not what the plan was supposed to be.
While Harley cared a ton about progress and innovation, his isolation and lack of friendships had turned him into a cynic. He didn't care about trying to make the children happy or benefiting humanity. He just wanted to see how far he could go with his creations, which went completely against Elliot Ludwig's ethics, causing them to argue against each other, where after a little while, despite him being one of the smartest children in the entire program, he unfortunately was removed by Elliot.
Okay. Go ahead, Elliot. See, that's smart. You can have people in your company that are very smart, intelligent, good at what they do. But if you put them in a position of power and they don't agree with your thesis, they don't agree with your brand and what you're trying to build overall, you need to get rid of them or demote them to a position where they don't have the power to influence the company's overall direction. So it's actually good that he got rid of him. Now I'm confused. Now I'm back on the train of like, where's this going? Because how would this kid ever get power then if he just got fired?
Harley, following this, was enraged, believing Elliot was a backstabber after inviting him in the first place just to get rid of him.
He's crashing out.
But for now, he was gone.
For now, he was gone. How does he ever come back? Whatever. We're jumping to the 1970 now that we are flying, and now Elliot's probably old.
In 1972, Elliot would sign with the company Warnbach Construction to build new areas of the factory.
That was
For
cool.
instance, a theater where tour visitors could watch shows acted and based on the Playtime Co. characters, with one of the main mascots of the area being Boxy Boo, among many other sectors of Playtime Co.
This looks a lot like Five Nights at Freddy's. Are they in the same universe? Like, do their paths ever cross or anything? Because it's so similar.
However, a few years later in 1976, after decades of company growth, Elliot wanted to do something even bigger to further his vision of helping and providing enjoyment to children around the world. He had brought toys and opportunities to millions of families, but he also wanted to help the many others without families, leading to him creating the Playtime Co. Orphanage Program, a program ran by Elliot that specialized in providing homes and love to millions of children who were orphaned with no parents. And in order to house all these children, he would have Warnbach build Playcare.
You know why he's doing this though? Because he feels bad that he never had that strong connection with his own child. And now that his own child is dead, well, half dead, I guess, he's like, he needs to give back. He's feeling regret. And so now he's going to do everything that he can to kind of prove to himself that he's not a bad dad. I think that's what he's feeling. He's probably feeling like he was a bad dad and he doesn't want that. So now he's fostering a bunch of kids to make himself feel better, essentially.
In-house orphanage, where after a tram ride into a dome, they were met with a city-like structure with homes, schools, counselors' offices, play areas, and a store full of toys.
I'm not gonna lie, if I was a kid and I was there, that would be like heaven. That does look pretty awesome.
It was everything a child would ever want while waiting to be adopted. Around this time, more toys were also created, like Yarnaby, who was a part of a wildlife conservation campaign to save animals, and Candy Cat, a gumball machine and dispenser. However, deep within the background of this success, while all of this was going on, Elliot Ludwig began to wonder about how he was able to create such a perfect doll in Poppy Playtime decades past, and if he could reproduce the results again. Since if he could figure out the secret to literal resurrection, he can not only entertain children, he could save their lives in the same way he did his daughter. The only thing he really knew about her was that she was a doll scented like poppies. So he began to experiment creating a poppy gel formula to attempt to resurrect other small animals like rats, things that were ultimately unsuccessful but gave him promise to keep working, while also hiring other new employees like Stella Graber to manage Playcare, Eddie Ritterman, the head of research, Leith Pierre, the head of innovation, and Jimmy Roth, the head of marketing, to expand the toy side of the company further.
Wait, so he resurrected his daughter and then never expanded on the idea of resurrection? the only person ever to do that is Jesus, and then he does it and is like, oh, I did it, and I'm never gonna look into it again. And then fast forward like 30 years, he tries to look into it again and can't figure it out. Something seems fishy.
In the early 1980s, Playtime Co. was still large, but it needed another big product to keep their name in the
Poppy
spotlight.
Playtime.
They had created a ton of new toys to fill up the company's successful lineup, but it wasn't until the year 1984 when they would come up with the company's biggest life-changing idea yet, Huggy Wuggy, a furry...
He's right. I forgot about that. That's Huggy Wuggy. That's my bad. Hand up accountability. That is Huggy Wuggy. I totally forgot. That is how much I don't know about this world, by the way. I forgot that that's Huggy Wuggy. Okay, got it. I'm good. We're locked in.
Stuffed animal toy that was extremely cute, equipped with Velcro hands that stuck together, as their market research showed anxious children were calmed by a toy that could hug them back. They would release this toy to an absolute smashing success, becoming immediately the biggest toy Playtime Co. had ever.
So it's a toy that you grab it and then you wrap it around you and it velcros its hands together for comfort purposes. Interesting. I wonder if that actually exists, like a toy like that before. That's pretty creative, actually.
Taking the place as the unofficial mascot of the entire company. Then in 1985, they would expand on this success even more by creating a female counterpart to Huggy.
Take my money! Does this exist IRL? Do they have a low punny Huggy Wuggy? Asking for a friend.
Along with even smaller, more affordable Huggy Wuggies, the Mini Huggies. These toys, 50 years after Playtime Co.'s opening, skyrocketed the company into the biggest it's ever been, and at this point, it seems like Playtime Co. would never fail. However, an issue that quickly arose was Elliot Ludwig's age. Elliot had been working on the factory for the entire 50-year history, and as time began to pass, he started to give more and more power to one of the employees he hired during his time, Leith Pierre, the head of innovation. An arrogant and somewhat greedy businessman known to overwork his employees and threaten to fire them if they didn't do a good job, but was otherwise actually very well liked by Elliot, as he made it a key point to stay true to Elliot's vision as he took on more roles at Playtime Co., culminating in the late 1980s, where Elliot Ludwig would finally pass away, leaving Leith Pierre to take full control of the company.
I gotta say, in business, it's good to have a right-hand man that is strict on the employees, because then you can play good cop, bad cop. Because as the owner of the company, you can still be well-liked and well-respected by everybody in your company. And then if you ever want to like push somebody or be mean to somebody or, you know, threaten somebody, you tell your right-hand man to do it. This way, you're still a well-liked guy and respected in your own company. And that makes employees still want to work for you. And then they just see your right-hand man as being a mean person. When in reality, it's you're the one that's telling your man to do that. This way, your employees still like you. They still like the company as a whole. They just don't like their one manager. Does that make sense?
Left behind, he was shocked to see that behind closed doors, there was Poppy. The real, living, and breathing Poppy, something nobody had ever seen in the factory before.
So where has she been this whole time? In this underground fake home that he built? She's just been chilling there, alive? Dude, like, what has she been doing? Because back then, they didn't have, like, video games. It's not like she's just been playing Fortnite for 50 years. Like, she's just been chilling down there.
While over in his office, the documents of him trying to use Poppy Gel to revive rats were found. These things Leith and his team began to study, but over on the toy side, he had also left one more thing. Plans for the Smiling Critters. A set of 8 different Care Bear inspired plushes, all with their very own personalities, led by Dog Day, and included others like Bobby Bear Hug and Hoppy Hopscotch that would be sold as plushes and would spit out their own unique scents based upon their personalities. Like Bobby, who is a character focused on love, emitting a rose scent, for instance. This was Playtime Co.'s most ambitious toy line yet off the back of the recent Huggy success. And Leith, being the businessman he was, loved this idea and sank absolutely all the money he could into the line, creating tons of the plushies to sell and even producing an entire cartoon to build the brand further. But he also had one more trick under his sleeve, specifically with the last smiling critter, Catnap. who was the critter all about getting enough sleep, with his plush scent originally being lavender.
I have heard of Catnap before, and he like runs this group. I think. He's like the clan leader of these little guys. I feel like as an actual product though, like the scent would run out. How long is it gonna, let's say, that scent for? Do you have to replace the scent every so often? There's no way it lasts forever.
However, after seeing what Elliot was doing with all the Poppy Playtime flower stuff and the success of her Poppy scent as a toy back in 1950,
because sorry to go back to it, but that would actually be a genius like business structure. You buy the product, and then if you want to continue to use it over time, you have to buy the scent. Like if the scent runs out after a month, you need to go buy more scent. So you buy the product for $20, but every month you got to spend an extra $2, an extra $3 if you want to keep that scent going.
And his team would instead create a new gas for Catnap, this time made from the poppy flowers, being a dark, thick red that when administered and tested had extremely strong sleeping properties, knocking people out completely like how Catnap would in the show, while also having notable adverse effects like night terrors and nightmares. Regardless, during production, employees noticed the red smoke coming from the plushes, but chose to send them out anyway, leading up
Fire them
to 1989, where the plushes and the cartoon would finally release, where things went horribly. The show itself was very unpopular. Children were extremely scared of Catnap, who was completely silent and spewed the intimidating gas to the critters in a terrifyingly uncanny way, making the show almost immediately a failure. But perhaps most
that looked like analog horror. How is that a kid cartoon? But anyway, let's find out what the most horrifying part about it was.
horrifying of all was the plushes themselves, specifically Catnap's, as after the plushes went out to stores, Playtime Co. would instantly fall under extreme controversy. Children began to have horrifying nightmares after getting the Catnap plush and inhaling said red gas, as news articles and television urged parents to not let their children near the Catnap plush or any of the smiling critters for that matter, destroying the company's entire reputation overnight.
They're kind of like trying to create a kid version of a vape, because they're like trying to get kids addicted to these scents to where they have to smell the scent in order to fall asleep. Genius business opportunity.
Playtime Co. eventually ended up recalling the Catnap plush completely while trying to save the rest of the line and creating new alternate lines like the Nightmare Critters, but it was no use. Nobody wanted to step anywhere near the critters anymore, and just like that, with the snap of a finger, the factory Elliot Ludwig had produced was now in a major depression. The millions of dollars invested were wasted, the smiling critters were a failure, and the company seemed like it was on a one-way spiral out of existence.
That's crazy, bro. What if somehow it gets resurrected into Huggy Wuggy, and that's why Huggy Wuggy goes rogue, because the entire business is up in flames, and then Huggy Wuggy destroys everything. 1990s. Okay, now I was born.
With
Late
Playtime
1990s.
Co.'s reputation being destroyed by the Catnap disaster, Leith Pierre was getting desperate. He was running low on funds, and if nothing changed soon, Playtime Co. was going to go down in flames quickly. His only real hope left was Poppy and the red gel. If he could figure out how these things worked and could create real living toys just like Elliot, the company would have no competition. They'd have the best toys on the market by far. The only issue is he didn't know how they worked. And in an act of desperation, he needed some help and would turn over to Elliot's Young Geniuses program from a few decades back, hiring an investigator, Jared Lockhart, to track down all of the old applicants and list out what they've done as they aged, where one above them all seemed to stick out among the rest. Dr. Harley Sawyer,
he's a doctor
who had,
now.
since his days at Playtime Co., became a neuroscientist with years of experience under his belt. And while he was originally kicked by Elliot Ludwig for his lack of morals, with no real other options, Leith brought him back, sending a letter bringing him onto the team on January 15th, 1990.
I kind of like that play, honestly. Like, he's in desperate times, and at this point, you gotta throw, from a business perspective, you have to throw the business morals out of the window if you want the business to stay afloat at all. You gotta call on that guy.
For when doing so, Harley went to work, trying to figure out how the Poppy doll's life worked by taking the toy apart piece by piece to find that inside were real-life human remains. Knowing it was then possible to create a living toy out of an organism, Sawyer then kept studying the Poppy doll while creating a few small experiments of his own to try and recreate the success. But
I wonder if his daughter is still feeling pain in there. Like they're doing open back surgery to her while she's in there, like in that doll. That's crazy. That must hurt so bad.
it was when reading back on Elliot's rat experiment when Sawyer saw it notably cited that while rats were unsuccessful, larger test subjects might reveal better results. But then, where was he going to get a larger body to experiment on? Well, conveniently, Elliot had recently perished and had an available and capable body open for testing. After all, it's not like he had a family that would notice where his body went. So Harley took out some of his bones and other parts and mixed it with various different metals found.
I called it! Watch, he's gonna put him in Huggy Wuggy.
The factory to again try and recreate life. And behold, upon doing this, it was seemingly a success. He had created a quad robotic creature that was living, breathing, and moving, named Experiment 1006 to continue off the numbers of Elliot Ludwig, also known as the prototype, Harley's first test at creating life. The prototype was very interesting because while at his core he was just a bunch of random parts strapped together, he was extremely intelligent, just like Elliot, almost too intelligent, seemingly retaining the smart and inventor-like qualities of his original body, but morally was completely different, being extremely violent towards the employees that tried to contain him, even using his inventor skills to craft a laser pointer from an alarm clock in his cell.
Okay, what doesn't make sense though is how it's smart. Because your brain is what makes you think. Like, bro, he just used 2 bones from his arm. I would understand it if the lore was like, okay, he can move the mechanical arm because like his bones and muscles have muscle memory, but there's no like actual thoughts or consciousness in your arm. How is that translating over to him still being able to create things? That I don't get.
And destroy the camera watching in on his chamber, where when an employee would enter to check up on him, he would kill them.
The prototype seemingly disassembled the digital alarm clock within his room and utilized the battery along with several other components to create a laser pointer, which he then fired into the security camera, disabling it. Once function returned to the camera, the room appeared to be empty. One surveillance specialist went in to confirm his absence. However, the prototype had hidden in one of the camera's blind spots. One casualty occurred.
Otherwise, the creation, despite being living and breathing, didn't need to eat or anything to survive, which was a plus. And he also couldn't speak, but had the ability to mimic other people's voices, listening in on the many conversations around the factory collecting data. So overall, the prototype was a success, but he was extremely dangerous.
Wait, how is he able to mimic people's voices when he's a hand? It's a hand, it's not a mouth. What?
Employees advised Harley Sawyer to destroy the creation. However, he refused as he found his intelligence to be extraordinary and worth studying, so he would keep him around for now. But another problem still faced. Harley had no more capable bodies to experiment on and needed to find a use for these experiments fast for Leith Pierre or face the company shutting down and losing the job he had been wanting since a young boy. Conveniently for Harley though, Elliot had spent his time building up an entire orphanage below the factory, filled with children that had no families to account for them and check up on them if something were to happen. Plus, he also had this red smoke technology created by Leith that could be used to control when they were awake and when they were asleep, like their very own personal anesthesia. This led to Harley experimenting on some of the children and tried shoving them into the shells of the brand's iconic toys to try and make something valuable for Leith and the business to sell, but was met with failure after failure after failure. Some instances including Experiment 1015, who showed minor brain activity but otherwise didn't work in the slightest, or a little while later Experiment 1026, who survived for 45 minutes and held promise, being able to look at whoever was talking to them and even track down an employee's index finger when prompted, but otherwise was also unsuccessful.
Wait, when he said he's like shoving the body bodies in there. Is he killing the kids too, or he's just like taking a blood sample potentially and then putting the blood sample in there? Because with Elliot's body, he just used 2 bones. Like, he didn't need the entire body. He just needs 2 little bones, and that seemed to do the trick. Is he killing these kids? Oh my god.
Couldn't reproduce what he did with the prototype into the shell of an actual toy like Elliot did, only being able to create experiments that would live for a few seconds and die off in their small toy bodies. It was not working. But then he chose to try something life-changing. What if instead of trying to cram a human body into a small toy-sized creature, he chose to make the toys themselves larger? Human-sized toys. This would solve everything, as Harley would no longer need to fit all of the parts into a tiny toy-sized body, and it could still provide value to the company, as Leith would no longer need to worry about hiring and paying employees or even about factory lawsuits, since he could instead replace all of the employees with these larger, stronger toys that could also be used as a selling point for Playtime Co.'s famous tours. To pitch this idea, he would work on Experiment 1160, a bigger version of the toy Boxy Boo, which ended up being a massive success. Similar to Poppy, it could move, breathe, and think like a real human, with the only real downside being that he required food to survive, unlike the prototype. Harley showed Boxy off to Leith Pierre to pitch the program The Bigger Bodies Initiative, which Leith would ultimately approve of, assigning each bigger body Harley would create with their own specific task.
So does he have to kill 1 kid for each toy? Because if he does, they're going to be selling presumably millions of toys, which means they have to kill millions of kids. That is insane.
Boxy Boo's was to be the factory's Punisher, as in order to ensure nobody found out about the experiments they were working on, Harley would tailor Boxy Boo's appetite to human flesh, so in case any employees or tour guests saw anything they weren't supposed to, they wouldn't leave with the factory secrets, but that wouldn't be a problem for now. In order to ramp up production further, Eddie Ritterman would re-sign with Warrenbach Construction later in 1990 to build even more things. Firstly, creating a larger laboratory for the experiments under the entire factory where nobody would find it, offering $100,000 to Warrenbach to keep it all a secret. They would build the gas production zone, which would produce the red smoke and distribute it throughout the factory, specifically into Playcare as they needed to settle down the children, while they would also create the game station, a building connected directly to Playcare by a child-occupied train that on the surface was disguised as a playground area where children could have fun and play in their 3 mini-games: Musical Memory, a game of Simon Says, Whack-a-Wuggy, a game of Whack-a-Mole, and Statues, a game of Red Light, Green Light. However, in reality, this place was actually built so that scientists could test the children's physical and mental cognition in the games and pick the best ones for experimentation based on their performance. Also,
what a sick company this is. Disgusting behavior.
Creating the 3 games mascots, Bunzo Bunny, Mini Huggies, and PJ Pugapillar into real bigger bodies to run the games for them. With all these expansions, they would hire a ton of new scientists to work and mass produce these creations, like Dr. White, another prodigy from the Young Geniuses program, and a biologist by the name PW, who will matter more later. But together, they would start to mass produce a ton of these toys, creating some failures like Pianosaurus, Experiment 1163, who acted like a rabid animal attacking anything in sight with no real other use. And
these are like the first ever Italian brain bots, bro. They just combined, what was that? A crocodile and a piano? No, it was a piano and a dinosaur. Pianosaurus.
Yarnaby Experiment
Oh my
1166, who was once a child named Quinn Navidson, originally deemed to be a bad kid as his game station performance was low, but after being mentored by Harley himself, improved his score tremendously and would be chosen to be turned into the Yarnaby monster, who for whatever reason displayed an odd sense of loyalty to certain staff members, leading to Harley Sawyer manipulating this emotion by isolating himself with Yarnaby until he became so emotionally dependent on him that he could control Yarnaby and what he did completely, which would become a problem later in the timeline when something we'll discuss would happen to Harley, leaving Yarnaby grieving and unable to do anything for weeks. But as time went on, they also started to create more successful experiments, like with Huggy Wuggy Experiment 1170, who was tasked with being the Playtime security guard and was seen as obedient, rarely fighting back with staff, and Kissy Missy Experiment 1172, who was similar to Huggy in almost every way. So the Bigger Bodies initiative was generally successful. They were building tons of new experiments that didn't always work, but they were at least getting better every time, and they even started to replace the workers in Playcare by creating toys like Miss Delight and various different clones of her to replace all the teachers in the school area. However, to cut costs even further, for their next project, they wanted to create a new Bigger Body that would spit the red smoke around Home Sweet Home where the children would sleep for them. And calling back to the Smiling Critters fiasco, they decided who else but a monster version of Catnap to fit the role. They had already around this point began testing bigger body versions of previous Smiling Critters like Bobby Bear Hug, Hoppy Hopscotch, and Dog Day. So they already had an idea on what to do and how to make him successful. So they began developing plans to create a tall, lanky Catnap monster with cat-like qualities and a gas delivery apparatus implanted into his esophagus. So while the creature roamed the area, red gas would naturally emit from his mouth while he breathed. They also detailed a long list of different children in Playcare they wanted to use for this experiment, with one in particular standing out among the rest, Theodore Grambow. Theo was a mysterious child who didn't really have any real friends around him and instead would often talk about having some kind of imaginary friend. And when looking through Theo's drawings, they would find a sketch of said friend.
That's the arm. That's the prototype. That's literally the prototype.
006, the prototype, who had seemingly escaped his cell and was now lurking around Playcare befriending Theo. However, this wasn't an even relationship, as the prototype would begin to use Theo, who would get caught digging through Playtime Co. employee files under the order of his imaginary friend, and would also steal 2 sets of grab pack hands and green electric hand attachments, an extension they added to the hands to allow electricity to be transferred to doors and power them on. Then suddenly, one night at Home Sweet Home, Theo made a run for the exit with 1006, attempting to power on the doors to leave Playcare using the green electric hands. However, being only a 7-year-old child, Theo would accidentally misfire and shock himself, leaving himself with severe burns while opening the exit gate. But from here, something really interesting happened. The prototype at any moment could have made a run for it, leaving Theo to die and escaping Playcare alone. But in what must have been a moment of the true Elliot inside of him showing, he had a change of heart, and instead alerted authorities to Theo's injuries, saving his life, but getting himself caught in the process. Following this event, seeing Theo's rowdiness, they decided that he would be the prime victim to be chosen for Catnap Experiment 1188 in November of 1990, which...
Why would they still choose him though? Like, he's trying to escape. Surely he's not going to obey like what they want him to do.
Which upon operation could generally be considered a success, as he could walk around and spit the red smoke as he was supposed to. But that's not to say he didn't have a few various problems. For one, the children found Catnap to be really scary at first, which was obviously bad since he was supposed to be around them every night. Plus, eventually his voice box broke, giving him a scary, raspy voice. But by far, his biggest issue was that he was seemingly obsessed with the prototype. As a child, the prototype was his only true friend, and after saving his life in the Green Hand incident, Catnap saw the prototype like a god.
So it seems like when the kids fuse with the toys, they're not really them anymore, but they're kind of them. It's like they have their memory, but are only acting on instinct rather than actually like having cognitive function. You know what I mean?
Him around wherever he went in the same way a puppy would follow its owner. He was completely under 1006's control more than even the employees. But even more issues would arrive on November 20th, 1990, as inside of Playcare's playhouse, they had created a bunch of holding cells in order to hold the experiments until they were needed. And while attempting to confine Catnap into one of these holding cells, he would, in a fit of rage, escape and go on a rampage, attacking 6 employees and killing them before several tranquilizer darts were shot into him, subduing him. With one of the witnesses—
Would tranq darts really work on a toy though? I know like it's conscious or whatever. I don't know though, it's a toy.
Reporter of the incident being the biologist PW, urging for better safety equipment while seeing firsthand the inhumanity of these experiments and what it did to the children inside the bodies. Regardless, this situation would be covered up by the company, and afterwards Leith Pierre would begin to put together a group known as the Resource Extraction Specialists, who were in charge of collecting parts and evidence after tragedies just like this one, also building an employee-only train station used so they could quickly move throughout the dangerous areas, which are good things, but they also cost the company a lot of money. For now though, Catnap would keep getting evaluated into 1991, where things started to lighten up as the bigger bodies kept expanding. For instance, in light of the recent tragedy, they would also build the Safe Haven, a bunkered off room that ran on its own power system with highly protected doors and safety features, designed so employees in the event of another emergency could go and hide inside until it was safe to leave. And going back to Playcare, the scientists grew interested in experimenting on the child Marie Payne, who didn't fit particularly well inside as she responded super negatively to the red smoke, having severe night terrors when administered. So they would instead turn her into an original toy experiment, Mommy Longlegs, a stretchy long-arm toy that after creating was at first really concerning, as while she was loving and kind to her fellow orphans, she was violent towards the employees. So to get use out of her, they transferred her to the game station as the children's daycare attendant while they examined from far away, and the children loved her so much that they even created a toy out of her to sell to the public, being another big success for Playtime Co. There was also another child in Playcare worth noting who was named Ollie, a child who at first wouldn't seem notable as he was just another kid in the thousands that flooded the Playcare's orphanage, but the main difference was he had a phone of some sorts that allowed him to communicate across the factory, specifically with another super important child, Poppy. These two never saw each other, but at some point began actively communicating.
So Poppy is still alive even though they did tests on her and like opened her up and poked around on her insides. She's still just chilling down there. And it seems like I got this a little bit wrong, so I apologize for that, but I think that the big toys are just for like the amusement park side of things and for the children at the foster care facility. It doesn't seem like they're selling them, but they are selling the miniature toys.
Being forced to let employees study her and take her apart, was able to confide in Ollie and talk with him to help calm her down.
Poppy?
Yes, I'm here.
Are you feeling okay? Did the bad men hurt you?
The bad men don't say what they want. They don't care how much anything hurts. It's been weeks and weeks of taking things out and putting them back in, and taking things out and putting them back in, over and over and over.
Hey, hold
Never
on.
gotten better, and it'll never get better. I'm nothing now, Ollie.
You're not nothing to me. You're Poppy. I'm here, Poppy. For you, I'll always be here.
She must hate being called Poppy though, like she has a real name. Why does she like call herself Poppy, you know?
A true friend in the factory after being turned into the monster she felt she was. Speaking of monsters, following this, with all of these different experiments roaming around the factory, the secret was bound to slip at some point about what was truly going on down here. And at first, it would start small, as on March 21st, employee Marcus Brickley would report to Leith Pierre seeing a 1,000-legged monster in the cafeteria roaming around.
I took a peek beneath the gate, and some massive bloody thing was doddering about the bloody hallway.
Thing? You're sure it
Is that Jacksepticeye? He looks different now. That's him though. That's Jacksepticeye! Oh my god.
Ain't no person that's 50 feet long with 1,000 legs.
Not knowing it was a bigger body of PJ Pugapillar. Thankfully, though, this report stayed small, as Leith rubbed it off as being in Marcus's imagination, and eventually he forgot about it. However, just over a week later, on March 30th, employee Rowan Stoll, a Playtime Co. IT specialist, would make another report claiming it looked like the Huggy statue in the lobby was watching guests on the tours, unaware it was a living thing. However, unlike Marcus, Rowan kept investigating and started digging into Playtime Co.'s secrets in search of answers, learning about the Bigger Bodies initiative and what Playtime Co. was working on behind the scenes.
I feel like I knew that guy too, by the way. I just couldn't put my finger on it.
Which obviously horrified him, and he wanted to get the word out. So he would use his IT skills and uploaded all of his findings onto a computer server. However, quickly, Playtime Co. caught onto this and would try to kill Rowan by doing things like messing with the wheels of his car, hoping for an accident. This obviously scared Rowan, since a big company was coming after him, and he realized his fate was coming near. So he wrote a letter containing the information to access the computer files he was working on, containing all of these secrets, sending it out to his mother on July 15th, 1991, while also recording one final VHS tape saying his final goodbyes, and detailing his plan to release all of his findings during the next week's security maintenance.
Next week, I've scheduled the company, the servers, the security to be shut down for 60 minutes of maintenance. While security is out, I'm going to release everything and run.
Where days later, they finally caught him in a room with Boxy Boo, who finally got to put his human appetite to work, eating Rowan Stoll and killing him.
Nah! That's terrifying. That looked like a tarantula attacking his prey, like an ambush predator. That's so scary.
Then a few more days later, on July 20th, during Rowan's planned maintenance, Playtime Co. would instead wipe all of their computer databases, including the files he planned to release, keeping all of their company secrets hidden, at least for now. Things generally coasted along for the rest of the year for Playtime Co., leading into 1992, where there started to be another problem. As with Elliot Ludwig being dead, the employees seemingly started to store various different body parts inside of his house, including those of a young experimented on child that was eventually discovered by the public, which obviously was bad for the company's reputation. And furthermore, on June 18th of the same year, for seemingly no reason, one of Playtime Co.'s best and most successful and obedient toys, Huggy Wuggy, would suddenly snap and break for Playtime Co.'s exit, escaping the factory during the night and wreaking complete havoc in the outside forest, killing multiple employees and even being spotted in residential neighborhoods. And while thankfully both of these incidents were able to be swept under the rug, as Elliot's neighbors already saw him as weird, giving them a good alibi for the body being there, and they managed to subdue Huggy without any of the public seeing him, these close calls were starting to get worrying, and also showed that the monsters were seemingly getting more and more aggressive over time, especially since in another experiment, 1199, the employees turned worker Thomas Clark into a Brawn toy after he contracted lung cancer to try and save his life, but was
How crazy would that be, bro? Like, you have lung cancer, you're on your deathbed, you're fighting, you're struggling, you know, your family comes to see you one last time, and then you take that last breath. And then, boom, you wake up and you're a little dinosaur toy. What is the thought process after that point? I guess, like, you know, he no longer probably has cancer. That's good for him. That's a plus.
Almost immediately attacked by the other toys who could tell he was an employee.
Oh my god! And oh my god! And then you get attacked by the other toys. Oh god, that's awful.
Showing how much more aggressive they were getting. Speaking of which, Harley Sawyer in the background kept studying his first creation, the prototype, who as well started to show more signs of aggression. For instance, in a log of Harley Sawyer's, he finally opened up and spoke to him, asking if he felt any kind of remorse for what he was doing to the toys, and how he was forcing them to live these terrible lives in the name of progress.
Ready to talk now, are you? I possess
A question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything? You stick us.
Beat us.
Tear at flesh.
Do you feel it?
That's horrifying. Oh my god. But also, I don't get how it can talk still. I must have some sort of like mic on it because I'm not understanding how that thing is talking. It's a hand.
Christmas of 1992, the accidents wouldn't stop, as the child Jack, who was a big fan of Playtime Co., was gifted a tour to the factory in the following year, 1993. However, while at the tour in the sector where the famous Doughy dough was being created, he accidentally slipped over the guardrails and fell into the dough itself, consuming him and killing him right in front of his parents. This was another Playtime Co. tragedy that they had to deal with, but thankfully this time they had a plan, as they had already been producing all of these experiments out of children for years now. So they decided to try and keep this story from reaching the public. They would attempt to revive Jack by turning him into a bigger body of his favorite toy, Doughy the Dough Man.
That's low-key kind of cool. Like, bro is a fan of Doughy the Dough Man, so he goes to see how Doughy the Dough Man is made. Then he gets killed by Doughy the Dough Man, then becomes Doughy the Dough Man. It's like a full circle type thing. For example, Thor. If I went to like a Marvel Universe thing where there was Thor and Thor killed me, but then I became Thor. That'd be pretty cool. I would not mind becoming Thor.
As Jack was just a small child, and in order to create Doughy, he was going to have to be a large 900-pound beast. So to complete the experiment, they would need to combine him with two other children they already had in play.
Way less cool.
Those two being Matthew Hollard, an older and more mature child, and Kevin Barnes. And
I also don't understand how this is hiding the story. They said that they're going to put this kid in Doughy to hide, like, cover up the story, but the kid is still dead. Does this mean that they're gonna tell the parents that the kid is in Doughy and so it's all good, like don't say anything? How is that covering up the story that the kid died?
A smart but also extremely temperamental child. And when combining all three of these to create Doughy, it was only partially a success, as the three personalities would constantly clash with each other and take control, with him sometimes being cute and friendly like the child Jack, wise and mature like the child Matthew, or on the negative side, angry and aggressive like Kevin. Regardless, they would invite Jack's parents over to the factory to show that they saved their son. And upon entering the testing chamber with Doughy, they were horrified by what they saw. A massive half-ton being of Doughy the Dough Man meant to be their child.
What did you do to him, dear? Look at it. That's not even human.
Regardless though, they tried to talk with the creature where instead of displaying the personality of Jack, he almost immediately became aggressive with the parents and started violently attacking them.
Hey, you'll be okay, I promise. Mommy's only here to talk.
No, I don't want to talk. Get out! Susan, get away from it!
Jack?
He's growling.
And despite them begging the employees to be let out of the chamber during this attack,
Open this door!
the scientists couldn't just let them see this and report it to the public. So unfortunately, they had to leave it closed where both of the parents died.
Okay, let's suppose all things went well and it was Jack inside of Doughy and the parents talked to Jack. And then what? The parents get let out? But then the parents will report that. The parents are going to tell somebody and then the whole secret's out. The whole shtick is gone. So it must have been their plan the whole time to kill the parents too. Why didn't they just let the kid die and then do nothing with it? Like, who cares? I mean, obviously it's tragic and it stinks, but at the end of the day, it's the parents and the kid's fault that he jumped in there. It's not the company's fault that he jumped into that, like, vat machine.
Please, open the door!
And afterward, Doughy realized what he did and switched personalities back to Jack, crying over
tragic.
both of his dead parents.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
So following all of these major incidents, the company, and specifically Leith Pierre, began to grow frustrated with Harley Sawyer. He had hired him to save the company money and their reputation after the catnap disaster, but all of these incidents put them just one bad bad day away from the company being ruined again, which Harley was aware of as he began to grow extremely strict towards his employees and colleagues, urging them to be perfect and threatening that they were just one bad day away.
I will say that's kind of a 200 IQ play out of Sawyer though, because you can leverage that, because now that there's like all these secrets and stuff going on, Sawyer knows all about it, so he pretty much can't be fired. He's untouchable at this point. And if you try to fire Sawyer, he can bring down the entire company if he wants to. So he might not be the owner of the company, but he definitely has as much power as the owner of the company.
He even went livid on the Playtime Co. chefs for accidentally putting pickles in his sandwiches that he didn't like. So tensions were at an all-time high, and around this point, Harley ran into another major issue. He had kept experimenting on these bodies all this time, creating dozens upon dozens of experiments. But as more were created, he didn't really have anywhere to put all of them. There were only a few cells inside of the playhouse to store them, and otherwise they would just freely roam around the factory, which led to issues like the Marcus Brickley one from before. So to try and fix this, he would begin to store the monsters inside of the Playtime Theater, where he would use the inactive experiments for the shows tour guests would watch to create an ultra-realistic experience, since of course the toy actors were the real things, solving the problem of having nowhere to put them. However, as these toys would begin to pile up in the theater, this quickly became a ticking time bomb that on one fateful day would go off, and the many toys shoved in the theater during a performance would, as you would expect, go haywire, attacking everybody inside of the theater watching the show, including 66 different people who were killed, 12 of which being employees and the others all being innocent civilians from the outside world, with presumably hundreds of other witnesses. This was the final straw. Harley's experiments had finally attacked civilians like what they were worried about, and just like that, the company he was hired to build back up after the massive controversy in 1989 was put in the negative spotlight once again, destroying all of the work he had tried to fix over the past 4 years. Leith was infuriated and would gather the other higher-ups, Stella Graber and Eddie Ritterman, to task the private investigator Jared Lockhart once again with investigating the theater incident and confirming their suspect, where quickly, as they thought, the one responsible seemed clear.
The prototype.
Dr. Harley Sawyer.
Things at this point had gone too far.
At this point, the whole company's got to get shut down, right? I mean, all of their toys just killed a bunch of people. That's it. It's done. It's over. There's no coming back from that, you would think.
And Sawyer needed to be stopped. The experiments were out of control. They had ruined the company he had tried to build up. However, at the same time, they couldn't just get rid of Sawyer, as his knowledge to create the experiments was still extremely valuable and is what got them this far in the first place. So they needed a way to control his body while still keeping his mind intact, giving them the idea to give Harley a taste of his own medicine.
That's crazy. They're gonna put that dude inside of another one. Oh, hold on! Pause. I didn't mean that. They're gonna put that dude inside of a toy to control his mind, because bro's kind of crazy. They want to take the good attributes from him while getting away from the bad attributes from him, and they think that this is the answer. There's no way it's gonna work, bro.
By tasking scientist Dr. White to experiment on his body and create him into an experiment of his own.
So they just kidnap him too and steal him away? Like, there's no way Sawyer would do that on his own. There's no way that he would oblige to that.
5-4 the Doctor. Taking Harley Sawyer's various different vital body parts, and specifically his brain, and shoving them into a bunch of old machines of Elliot Ludwig's to maintain them, attaching them to Playtime Co.'s computer system so they could power him on and off as needed. Then they would finally activate him, turning him on where he successfully woke up, but definitely wasn't very happy as he began to scream at Leith Pierre, threatening to eventually kill him for what he's done.
Let me tell you how this is gonna go, Sawyer. From now on, you're here to give the lab boys answers when they need them. That's it. You'll be an open book to us whenever we want.
You'll die for this, Leith.
This is crazy.
When I get my hands on you, you're a dead man!
Never in a million years would I thought that Poppy Playtime has lured this insane. This is actually absurd. They're like they've tortured so many people to create a product that at the end of the day sucks. The product is still killing people and they're torturing people to get the product. At this point, just give up, bro. Go become a trash man or something.
However, at least for now, Harley was dealt with finally. As for the other experiments, they couldn't just shove them all back into the theater where Harley left them. Another incident like this was just bound to happen again. So instead, Eddie Ritterman hit up Warnbach Construction and ordered the production of the Playtime prison. Something Warnbach desperately did not want to do as they slowly realized what was going on deep into the factory, but Eddie left them with no real choice after their contract in 1990 that legally forced them to build it.
I don't like what I'm supposed to be building here. What in the world would a toy company need with a prison? Let me give you a bit of history. In 1972, you signed a contract. A legally binding piece of paper that says whatever is asked of you, you do it. In 1990, you signed another.
What a ridiculous contract. Who would ever sign that? Whatever is asked of you, you do it. Sign here. How much money is this guy getting paid? $1 bajillion? You could ask him to do anything you wanted then.
So now you do the work because we've given you a directive. I get paid to see that things get done. And this, like everything else, will get done.
Where from there, they would hire themselves the warden, who was in charge of watching all of the experiments put into the prison and also got access to the Omni hand, a Playtime Co. grab pack hand they were working on that was only given to the main higher-ups in the company: Leith Pierre, Stella Graber, Eddie Ritterman, and of course now the warden, which gave them access to every door in all of the factory. Alongside the prison, they would build these secondary labs.
Have these guys never heard of a key? Why do they gotta walk around with grab packs to open doors? There's other ways to open doors, guys.
Which is where Harley Sawyer was stored and would be ran by Dr. White, placed right next to the prison so they could harvest the body parts of failed experiments and use them on better experiments instead of just letting them roam around where another accident can happen. As the factory would roll into 1994 and early 1995, it kept moving and generally was growing, with other small experiments being made like the mini critters and mini nightmare critters that were built as technology progressed and the scientists were able to create smaller bodies like what was originally planned at the start of the program. However, from here, other looming issues began to come up. On the employee side, when trying to expand the company further, the employees found that the red gas that they had built pipes around the entire factory for was extremely flammable. So continuing building underneath the factory was dangerous since the pressure down below was greater and one small fire or explosion could explode the entire factory from the bottom up. So to combat this, they started to produce canisters of liquid nitrogen that were designed to keep things cool in emergencies. While on the monster side, Kissy Missy, one of the earlier successful experiments, started to show severe signs of anxiety, so bad to a point where she could no longer work and they had to put her into storage for the time being to hopefully calm her down. But Kissy wasn't the only one who began to get anxious, as along with her, the employee and biologist from the past, PW, began to get worried about the state of the company and all of the experiments they were forced to work on, having a growing guilt building in the back of their mind. This wasn't morally right, experimenting on these kids until they turned into violent monsters that were going crazy, and it started to weigh on PW heavily as they would contemplate quitting and would take days off when the orphans would visit, not wanting to look them in the eye. So, like other people had tried to do in the past, they began to log down the things going on in the factory, collecting various different papers and evidence against the factory and putting them into one of their orientation notebooks, exposing the full story of Playtime Co. and their experiments to be left behind mind if something ever happened. And speaking of which, during this entire time, the tensions between the employees and the monsters, more specifically the prototype, only kept growing. 1006 was no longer going to keep letting these experiments happen. This was his factory before, and he grew sick day by day watching it become a place of corporate greed and scientific cynicism.
I don't get why the new owners, Pierre and Sawyer, don't exterminate the prototype. I understood it before, like whatever, you know, they want to learn more about him, but at this point, they know that a lot of the toys and the kids have a relationship with the prototype, and that it is essentially in control of the toys, or at least it has a lot of influence over some of the other toys. So why would they not seclude it or just destroy it entirely at this point, since they know what it's doing? That's what I would do.
He needed to stop it all. And after seeing what happened in the 1993 theater incident, he knew that the other experiments were his key to freedom. So over the next few months, the prototype began to create a plan with the toys, saying that if they all at the exact same time attacked every single employee and human being in the factory, they could kill all of them like how they did in the theater incident, and the prototype would free them from their torment and solitude. And of course, they saw how the prototype saved Catnap as a child and had attacked employees in the past, so they knew that they could trust him to finally free them. The date they chose for this attack was August 8th, 1995 at 11 a.m.
For the life of me, we'll never understand how this company is still even running at all. Their toys killed a bunch of people at their show. Who would ever go to another show? And how were they not like in prison? It's one thing if you're at Chuck E. Cheese and there's like somebody else who's also there who kills everybody. That's not necessarily Chuck E. Cheese's fault. It might give them a bad rap. It might make people not want to go to Chuck E. Cheese. It's another thing if Chucky is the one who killed everybody.
Playtime Co. kept running up until this day, even constructing new buildings like a Playtime Park. However, when the fateful day would finally arrive, at this fateful time, the toys finally, once and for all, attacked. Almost every single monster in the entire factory went haywire at the exact same time. Catnap attacked everyone in Playcare. Miss Delight attacked everyone in the school. Huggy attacked—
Wait, there was like 10 Miss Delights. So, okay, so earlier, look, I'm gonna be honest, like we're almost an hour into this video and I'm still not 100,000% certain how this is working exactly. But it's like, that was like 10 Mrs. Delights. That gives me the impression that they're able to use one kid to then make a whole bunch of replica clones of that kid in all of the different toys. See, that's where I was a little bit confused. It's like, is there only one Huggy Wuggy? Because they only use one kid to put in them. And if there's another Huggy Wuggy, would they use a different kid? But it seems like they use the same kid for all the different ones somehow.
All the tour guides up in the main lobby. Kissy Missy was actually in the process of being transported to Playcare from Storage B when the incident happened, where she attacked the extraction specialist.
Oh my gosh, she broke free easily.
Every single adult human that was there that day was killed.
God.
One employee who attempted to escape was the warden, who ran into Harley Sawyer on his way out, where he begged him for some help. So Harley had made him an offer. If he gave Sawyer that Omni hand he had that could control all of the doors in the factory, Harley, who was connected to the computer system, could use it to open all of the doors for him remotely and give him a way out.
What is Sawyer going to do with the hand? He's literally just a brain at this point. He's not a physical entity anymore. He's just like in a vegetable state essentially, but he can still think. He just can't move. He's a brain, that's it.
The warden, out of desperation, agreed, giving Sawyer full control to the factory, where we never hear from him again. However, while we can assume he died among the rubble, one person actually did survive the hour of joy. None other than PW, who had fortunately missed work this day and therefore wasn't there for the hour that killed every single employee but them. With the next day, all of the other employees completely disappearing and Playtime Co. officially ceasing to exist. But this wasn't it for the monsters, as going back into the factory, every toy was seemingly freed from the control of the employees, and like the prototype promised, no longer had to live in this factory. They were all saved. Except the prototype wasn't being being fully honest, as despite saying all the toys would be freed afterwards, that was kind of a lie. I mean, they were humans turned into toys. They couldn't exit here and live in a society like this even if they wanted to.
That's true.
Instead, the prototype didn't want to just kill the employees that ran his factory as a person. He wanted to take over himself.
I do kind of feel bad for the employees though, because at the end of the day, they are just doing their job. They're just doing whatever they're told to do. So I feel like all they needed to do was just kill like the owners, like Pierre and Sawyer, and then maybe a couple of the other higher ups, whatever. But the employees don't care, bro. The employees don't even know. They don't even know that they're what they're doing to the kids. It's only like the higher ups that know. So it's kind of messed up, actually. Like, yeah, they killed all the employees. That's not too cool. But maybe they had to kill the employees to be like as free as they're going to be now, to then make the next couple of decisions and steps in their ultimate plan.
Since the place after this almost immediately erupted into pure anarchy and chaos. Every toy that survived the attack were all instantly forced to fend for themselves, hunting for the remaining food in the factory, whether that be from the old workers' bodies or even eventually having to kill each other just for a bite to eat. Some did this and survived, while others refused and would rot away slowly. However, the prototype, who didn't need to eat, had devised a plan to take back control of the factory by creating his very own cult, where with his companion Catnap, who stuck by his side this entire time, he would offer the toys to go under the prototype's worship and rule, to be rewarded with protection and food to sustain themselves, while also striking a deal with the Playcare School's teacher, Miss Delight, who after the Hour of Joy was locked inside of the school for an unknown reason with all of her sisters, where after spiraling into insanity and going days with no food, she built herself a friend/weapon, Barb, and used them to kill all of her sisters and eat them. However, before running out of food, the school's doors would unlock, and it was revealed Catnap was there, who offered to take care of her from there and protect her as long as she protected the school and reported what she saw to the prototype. However, as for the ones who would choose not to follow this cult, you would be hunted and used for food for the rest. Now, this would all mainly be held inside of Playcare, or at least what was left of Playcare, where some experiments like the mini critters would worship the prototype, others like Hoppy Hopscotch would successfully run away, while less fortunate ones like Dog Day would try to pretend to be on the prototype side at first, but would eventually be captured and held in the Playcare prison for the followers to feast on his body day by day, bit by bit.
I know I said already, but like, what is even like, this is insane. This is pure insanity. How is this real? Who thought of this? It's just getting crazier and crazier and like scarier and scarier. But okay, so realistically though, the Poppy Playtime building, everybody dies in there. They all get murdered. How does the outside world not look at that and investigate? Like, why is there never any investigations going on? Why are we not someone drop a bomb on this building? Like, it's actually, I think, smart for the government to want to do that, because obviously these guys are a danger if they break out and they roam the streets. They've done it before, apparently. They're a threat. They're a threat to civilization.
While this was all going on, the prototype, who spared all of the orphans inside of Playcare, wanted to move them deep underground into the Playtime labs and store them where they would never be found. However, in order to do this, shockingly, he would begin to work with none other than Harley Sawyer.
Bro, I was going to say that. I was actually going to say that, I swear, because Sawyer has access to everything now that he has like the Omni hand or whatever. So he would have to befriend Sawyer again. And now they're kind of on the same team too, because Sawyer's also got cooked. Sawyer's also kind of one of them at this point, but he's more of like he's like Jarvis from Iron Man, where he's just like at this point he's kind of just like a computer. He's not really a physical body,
who, being an experiment, survived the attack and was approached by the prototype. Sure, they didn't like each other, but Harley wanted to keep experimenting and progressing his mission, while the prototype needed an Omni-Hand to access the rest of Playtime Co. So together they would collaborate, giving the prototype access to the entire factory, while in return helping Harley with experimentation, creating things like the Dr. Minions, allowing him to physically move around the factory once again through these robotic beings.
I can't believe this dude still wants to do experiments. How is he not given up yet? Like, bro, he is literally just a brain at this point. That is all that he is. That is dedication, honestly, respect. You gotta give it to the guy. He wants it bad.
Outside of those two, while the outskirts of the factory were turned into a complete wasteland, it wasn't all bad for the rest of the toys, as some of them actually managed to make it into Playtime Co.'s safe haven built by the workers before the factory went down, which, as mentioned, was completely sealed off from the entire rest of the place. Nobody could access it and nobody could open it from the outside, with some of the main notable survivors being Hoppy Hopscotch, who made it here, a Boogie Bot who they turned into a medic, Poppy Playtime, Kissy Missy, and the leader of the safe haven, Doughy the Dough Man.
Doughy the Dough Man is the leader? Oh god. He seems like the goofiest one of them all.
They all gathered together to live in here on their own generator and would even go on trips to bring food to the helpless experiments around the rest of the factory. The only issue was, in the depths of the factory, all that remained over the years outside of the prototype's cult were these vicious, bloodthirsty critters inhabiting the open worlds that moved around hunting and trying to get a bite of anything they could find, fending for themselves.
I mean, that looks like a lot of food to me. That's literally piles and piles of food.
This led to the toys sometimes getting attacked, like Hoppy Hopscotch, who got jumped in an expedition, making it back with severe injuries and eventually dying. This obviously was horrifying and began to scare the toys inside of the safe haven and incite panic. For instance, Doughy, who was supposed to be the leader of the safe haven, had the tendency to randomly leave and daydream about escaping the factory.
For the past few months, the fighting's been bad. I'm here, outside the prison, and seeing this again, it's given me reason to think I could make for the exit.
He's pretty well spoken for being 3 different children mashed together.
Back when realizing the children needed them, while Poppy was not so lucky. Still being a young child, she tended to panic and run away.
Poppy is like 30 years old. I mean, she's in the body of like a child. You know, that's what the toy is. I swear Poppy should be like 30 something years old. We did the math a long time ago.
When stressed out, with her on one of these panic-inducing days choosing to completely leave safe haven, where upon her exit she wouldn't return, scaring the survivors that the worst had happened. So they built her a shrine and sketched out drawings begging for her return. However, outside of safe haven, during her run and escape, she ran into none other than the prototype 1006, who had been looking for her for years. This was the first experiment and was by far the most perfect. It was Elliot.
It's also his daughter.
Its daughter before Elliot became the prototype, and despite her hiding away and not knowing 1006's true identity, he was still emotionally connected to her and found her valuable to his mission. He couldn't just kill her or let her leave, so instead he brought her back up to the home where they used to spend all their time together as a human. And to ensure she didn't run away, he locked her in a case, ensuring she was always home, and the prototype could still have that one semblance of a family life amidst
I'm sure
all
she
this
appreciates
chaos.
that. 2000s.
From here on out, this would go on for multiple more years, until the year 2005, 10 years after the Hour of Joy, where...
I hate to keep bringing it up, but like, it's been years that this building is still up and running. I guess it's not running, but like, I'll never get over how the government hasn't come in and just nuked the place.
Kissy Missy, the anxiety freak she is, began to get worried. The prototype was being logged and tracked by the safe haven members, and as time went on, he started to figure out how to get past their traps set up to keep him away, and their generator locking the doors shut from the outside was having issues and needed to be fixed fast before it broke. This obviously was a severe problem, and she needed somebody to save them. And thankfully, being an employee herself, she knew about PW, who had escaped the Hour of Joy and had some kind of sympathy while working here. So using her primitive writing skills skills, she sketched out a note claiming the staff was still there, since of course some of the experiments survived the hour, asking PW to find the flower mural that led to Elliot and Poppy's home, where alongside she attached a VHS tape about Poppy so we knew what this was for. She would send out the letter hoping for the best, and like Poppy, left the safe haven to come searching for PW and helping them on their journey. When receiving the letter...
How did she send the letter out? Did she go to like the post office? She just walked there and said, oh, here you go. Can you stamp this for me? Here's 25 cents. Thank you very much. Have a great day. How did she send this letter out? Look, first of all, this is a great, fantastic video. Well done. I'm not here to be rude. If it sounds like I'm being rude, I apologize. I don't mean to be rude. Like a lot of the footage that we're seeing, it seems as though it's straight from the game. So this must have like literally happened. And I'm just saying, how is that possible that Missy Wissy is able to write a letter and send it to PW from the building that they're in? That doesn't make any sense. There's no way.
Guilt must have gotten the best of PW, as despite the potential danger, they would return to Playtime Co. once again, this time abandoned, looking for answers to what happened to the employees and maybe finally getting some clarity to soften their guilt.
It took 10 years for him, or anybody for that matter, like the police, anybody, to try to figure out what happened here?
Starting the main games, where we play as PW themselves, who for now I'm mostly going to refer to as us or the
That's
player.
pretty cool.
Upon entering, we are met with the same old factory lobby, but this time with an ominous liminal vibe in the air. At the front lied a VHS tape by Leith Pierre, warning intruders that inside were intense security systems if they didn't turn back.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre. If you're seeing this, then you're trespassing. This facility is full of hidden motion triggers, which, once set off, will turn on the factory's emergency alarms and directly contact the authorities. And that's one of the more tame aspects of our security system.
But as we trespass anyway, we begin to encounter the unthinkable. Toys piled all around, bloodied and dead. From here, we then acquire a grab pack of our own from the security room, and upon entering the main lobby, we're met with the horrifying sight of the Huggy Wuggy statue.
So is he real? Like, bro is real? And he's just chilling like this in his spare time? Like, what is he doing? Because we know he's a real, like, person, kind of, and that's what he's doing. Okay.
Regardless, though, we moved forward, and when powering on the doors to the next section, suddenly Huggy was no longer there. But he definitely wasn't fully gone from the factory, since as we kept progressing, he kept seemingly peeking around corners, hunting us down like we were some kind of prey.
After
traversing
creepy.
through some more areas and collecting a second grab pack hand, we came across Elliot Ludwig's old Make-A-Friend machine that was still working and powering to this day. But something definitely seemed off about it, as its eyes began to follow us around almost like it was as well alive. Regardless, after using the Catbee toy it built to power on the next door, among the darkness, the Huggy Wuggy bigger body burst through, revealing itself in his entirety.
Why did they give it so many
an
teeth?
angry, savage, and hungry beast, chasing the player into a vent where he hunted us down, while writing on the walls reflected how he was desperately starving after years being in the factory, forced to fend for himself like the others. Somehow we would miraculously make it out, and using the grab pack dropped a box on Huggy's head by the catwalks, knocking him off and down a deep
Oh my god.
pit. On
That's a
the
lot of
other
blood.
side
Is he
was
dead?
the flower mural we had gotten this mysterious note for, which when entering, we were met with this creepy home aesthetic Elliot Ludwig left behind. At the end, we find one final door containing none other than the trapped Poppy doll sitting unconscious waiting for us, allowing us to grab onto her case and open it, saving her once and for all, causing us to then pass out from all the condensed Poppy fumes released from her hair. Poppy would then wake us up from our sleep and guide us out of her home to see Elliot's office right across. After getting the key from the janitor's closet and entering Ludwig's office, we saw what a stand-up man he was during his time and everything he sacrificed for the factory, through his own biography explaining his story, along with drawings from some children he kept all over his walls. After meeting back up with Poppy, she instructs us that in order to escape, we needed to access the train below in the game station. But what she failed to warn us from is Mommy Longlegs, who was still alive and as aggressive as ever. Mommy would suddenly grab and take Poppy away, blackmailing us by creating a little game. Survive the 3 game station tests and get the train code we were looking for. Where from there, after acquiring our very own green electric hand attachment, Mommy would have us play the death games challenge by challenge, facing off against their hungry bigger bodies, like Bunzo in Musical Memory and the Wuggies in Wacka Wuggy, which after progressing through, frustrated her, causing her to kill them and tie them up.
I don't know if I could play this game and take it that seriously. I'm sure it's very scary, but the characters are Wacka Wuggy, or one of the games Wacka Wuggy. One of the characters' names is Mommy Longlegs. How scary could it really be if those are the character names? I just don't think I can play that as a grown 27-year-old man and take it that serious.
Up in webs. However, when exiting the second game, we would enter a train station where we were trapped, as there was a gate blocking our way, making it impossible to pass. Shortly thereafter, though, a new friend would reveal themselves from the shadows. It was Kissy Missy, who had been waiting for our arrival and was behind the gate, opening it and then leaving us to continue on our way for the time being. Leading up to the third and final game, Statues, ran by PJ Pugapillar. And here, something Mommy Longlegs cleverly hid from us was that after making it to the end of the room, the ending was barricaded off, creating a dead end, showing Mommy never truly wanted us to survive. But yet, we managed to break into the observation rooms on the sides, miraculously making it out, which Mommy considered cheating, infuriating her and causing her to go insane, chasing us down through a game of hide and seek all the way until she ran into a grinder, getting stuck inside before we powered it on, where her body would be shredded up into pieces slowly and gruesomely. As she dies, she warned us of a mysterious threat.
What have you done? Don't make me part of it!
Before her body falls down and we see the person she was warning us about, the prototype who had survived this whole time, reaching out from under a gate and taking her body away, presumably to collect a new test subject for him in Sawyer's experiments. When moving on, we met back up with Poppy, who seemed much more determined and less happy and bubbly, as after seeing us defeat so many of these bigger bodies, this gave Poppy an ambitious idea. When getting on the train, she would suddenly change the tracks and force PW deeper into the fact.
I would not trust her. If I was playing this game, there's a 0% chance that I'm trusting that little rat.
Play care. She would then accidentally make the train go too fast and it would end up crashing,
accidentally,
knocking us out once more. However, this time, when waking up, we were in the grasps of none other than Catnap, who dumped us away into a garbage disposal, forcing us to crawl our way out. And upon escaping, while Poppy was nowhere to be found, seemingly running away like how she did in the past, we then came across a phone ringing for us that, when answering, had none other than Poppy's old friend Ollie speaking on it. When listening to him—
Wait, Ollie? Okay.
He seemed to be super fond of us and wanted to help us out.
Hey, can you hear me? You look kind of lost. I don't want you to die, so I'm gonna help you.
Guiding us through Playcare's entrance and into the tram that sent us into
Where's
Playcare
Ollie
itself.
now? I forget.
From here, we would be brought to none other than the gas production zone, the place where the mysterious red gas was being produced. And Ollie tasked us with moving the gas from Playcare on the right to down in the Playtime Co.'s prison on the left. However, when attempting to do this, the power would conveniently shut down. And from there, we were forced to go into the various different PlayCare buildings and activate backup generators to repower everything. Firstly, we'd go into Home Sweet Home, where the surviving bigger body Catnap often resided, flooding the place with red smoke that, when inhaled, caused us to enter a violent dream state. Walking around what we thought was Home Sweet Home, we began to hear news reports flashing back to the body of the young child found in Elliot's home.
Tragic news this morning. As of 9:45 a.m., local authorities report that the body of a young boy has been found on the estate of the late Elliot Ludwig.
Something that shook PW back when they worked here, realizing the morbid reality of the things they were experimenting on. Furthermore, we ran into a radio tape of the reporter this time shaming us for missing the Hour of Joy, the day where everybody, including PW, was supposed to die.
I find your presence intrusive. After all this time, you returned. 8/8/1995. You were supposed to be here. Why weren't you here? You missed the event. You missed the meeting. You missed the party.
The survivor's guilt was weighing heavy on PW as we then reached their old office when they were an employee. That again reminded PW of the guilt haunting over us.
Wait, but why does he feel guilty? Because he wasn't in on it. Like, sure, he didn't go that day, and he maybe was supposed to go that day and he didn't die, but he shouldn't feel guilty. Like, it wasn't his fault that it happened. Like, he should have died, but it wasn't his plan.
Finally coming across the labs room where we originally created the experiments. And when walking in, the door shut behind us, and out of the TV, a large demonic and evil version of Huggy Wuggy would climb out and chase us down the room, attacking us and giving us what we felt was the punishment we deserved for what we did. However, thankfully, this was all just a dream as we woke up, but now PW was determined to keep digging for this factory's secrets. It's what they owed to the lost children stuck here that they created. Moving through Home Sweet Home, we powered on its generator, where while leaving, we would suddenly be stopped and attacked by none other than Kissy Missy, who in a fit of terror aggressively pounced us. However, thankfully, Poppy was right beside her and calmed her down, letting us go. Kissy was still very clearly traumatized by the events of the Hour of Joy and the friends she lost along the way. However, we were here to help, and her plan to get us to come back had worked. From here, Poppy finally explained to us the reason she didn't let us leave is because she saw us as capable for some kind of mysterious mission, after seeing our actions in the past, and even expressed wanting to kill the prototype, although she doesn't go much further.
But the prototype is like her dad, so why would she want to kill the prototype? I guess the prototype did like lock her up in like a little 1x1 box, so she's probably pretty mad about that, but like, they're family at the end of the day.
He would continue on, powering up the school, which still held a corrupted version of Miss Delight, who we'd make it past. From there, we would travel through a large cave system that inside contained what appeared to be a shrine made up from a bunch of dead toys that Catnap had made for his god, the prototype that he would go and pray to daily. When progressing through, we made it to the playhouse, which held seemingly infinite mini living critters that were a part of the prototype's cult as well. And when making it past all of them, we were met with the playhouse prison that held one last standing heretic, Dog Day, who would panically beg for our help in stopping everything going on here.
How is he still
but not
alive?
for too long, as the critters would all come out and finish him off once and for all, eating him, while also possessing his body and chasing us out of the playhouse. The next and final place to power on was the counselor's office, that when activating finally gave Ollie the power needed to activate the gas production zone once again. However, on our way out, Catnap was actually waiting for us and attacked once more, causing us to enter another dream sequence where this time we remember seeing what the factory looked like before the Hour of Joy, getting a glimpse of all of the children that we were experimenting on. But alas, we had woke up and survived. However, Catnap was definitely not happy.
Hey, yo. I gotta say, there's not as much of Huggy Wuggy that I thought there was going to be. Like, I thought that Poppy Playtime was like, I thought it just was Huggy Wuggy, to be honest with you. But it's almost like Huggy Wuggy is like almost irrelevant. He's like the first character that you see, I guess, in the game. But then after that, there's like 10 other characters that get developed. And then Huggy Wuggy's gone. Like, it seems like you kill Huggy Wuggy and then bang, that's only like the first 10% of the game. But I always thought that like he was front and center, like the guy of Poppy Playtime. That's crazy.
From there, Playcare was fully repowered and Ollie sent the final blue battery cell to the gas production zone, where when entering, Catnap seemingly got tired of us and made his final attack, chasing us up into an elevator shaft where red gas filled the area and we began to hallucinate him as a colorless monster. From here, we would have to fight off against the hallucinations and power up the green hand here full of electricity, where when fully powered, we charged it and unleashed it onto Catnap, catching his entire body on fire and burning him alive, just like what happened when he was a child, once again putting him near death. From here, the prototype would again reveal himself, and Catnap would get into his prayer pose, seemingly begging 1006 for help in the same way he helped him as a child. But the prototype no longer saw him as useful, so like Mommy Longlegs, he killed him and took his body away again for his own use. Thankfully, after this, we were finally able to repower the gas production zone and reroute the gas down into the prison. Poppy and Kissy would then return to go on the lift down with us to complete whatever her mysterious mission was, before at the perfect time while going down, Kissy would be attacked by an unknown monster. When reaching the bottom of the lift, Poppy tells us that she supposedly has friends down here.
Low-key, I didn't know that I would be spoiling the entire game for myself, because I do want to play it at some point. Let me know if you guys want me to play it as well. But this is kind of spoiling the game for me. I also have goldfish memory. I will likely forget everything that's happened in the game within a week.
And tasks us with finding them while she goes up to save Kissy from whatever was attacking her. From here, we keep exploring around and eventually open up a door to reveal thousands upon thousands of dead toys in a massive graveyard, which when walking through brought us to the train station that led into the Playtime prison. And when entering said train, we are met with a very interesting face, or should I say eye, the eye of Harley Sawyer, who had connected to the Playtime Co. security system through the computer and had been watching our journey through the factory this entire time leading up to now. He would tease and threaten us a bit here before dropping us into the prison. Upon exploring the prison a bit, we would quickly come across the hungry rabid creatures that lived down in the Playtime Co. depths, the Nightmare Critters, who we fight off and avoid before making it to a testing chamber, where Harley once again appears and teases to us that he had reunited with an old friend, Yarnaby, who he had let loose on us for his own entertainment to watch us get hunted down. And while at first things from here seemed somewhat hopeless, while trying to escape Yarnaby's grasp, a mysterious doughy figure begins to help us out, unlocking different doors and causing distractions to attract Yarnaby, allowing for us to escape.
Wait, so is Doughy good? Is Doughy good? I kind of like Doughy, I can't lie.
And as we kept exploring further, eventually we accidentally fell down a chamber and came face to face with another experiment, Pianosaurus, a ferocious savage beast who at an instant turned around and started charging towards us.
I forgot about Pianosaurus.
At the last second, the doughy creature reaches their hands out and grabs onto Pianosaurus, slamming him around and dragging him into the darkness before eating everything but his head. As the figure emerges from the darkness, he reveals himself as Doughy the Dough Man, the safe haven leader. Doughy introduces himself and guides us towards Safe Haven, where Poppy said her friends would be. While moving towards the area though, suddenly Kissy, who miraculously survived her attack earlier, dragged us into a crevice where her and Poppy were hiding as the prototype was hunting them down, moving across.
Wait, he looks way bigger now. That hand is massive. Maybe he's like combining parts of Catnap and Mommy.
This was the being that attacked her. And from there, they gunned it straight into Safe Haven and closed it just in time. They were all safe, and Poppy, the one that the members had been waiting for years, was back in the Haven. Here, she finally explains to us her full plan. She knew about the prototype hiding the orphans deep below in the labs, and it was going to be our job to go and save them. While the reason she guided the red smoke down into the prison was because she also knew that the red smoke, like we mentioned earlier, was flammable and explosive. So her plan was to bring all of the orphans out of the factory and explode the entire place, killing the prototype and all of the bad experiments inside of it. From here, Kissy was severely injured from her attack, so they both stayed back and tended to her wounds, while Doey brought us to the room with the generator and alerted to us that the generator was broken and desperately needed new parts, or else it would stop working and the safe haven would be unprotected. They had the parts already, but the only problem is, to open the generator, the Omni Hand was needed, with the only Omni Hand known to still exist being in possession of Harley Sawyer. Meaning, before doing anything, They say like it's in possession of Harley Sawyer, as if that's like a big whoop. He's not even like a person anymore. He is just a brain. That is all. Like, I don't know why that's such a big, like, just go walk over and take it. What is he gonna do? I guess like he could communicate, so he could communicate to his fellow toys that you're trying to steal it. But at the end of the day, like, he himself, I don't really think can do anything. What is he gonna do? Needed to get that hand and save the children in Safe Haven. From here, we kept exploring around, and after having another run-in with Yarnaby where we had ran from him and got him stuck on a hook, killing Harley's pets, we continued onward into the secondary lab, where Harley's various body parts were being stored. Going around the lab, we discovered all of his body parts and destroyed them. However, the last part, his brain, was going to be the hardest as it was heavily guarded. For instance, one of Harley's security measures was keeping some nightmare critters of his own as pets to protect him. And after making it past this test, Harley had trapped us into a room, giving us a super interesting dilemma, forcing us, the employee who only re-entered the factory to try and cleanse the guilt we felt for creating the experiments, to make a very important decision. Either stay trapped in the room alone and die, ending our mission, or be forced to kill an innocent experiment turned toy to keep progressing. I'd kill that so quick, it's not even a question. Here was painted as the bad guy for killing innocent children to complete his mission. But would we do the same? Well, fortunately, it doesn't really matter because he forgot a ledge we could climb up and escape scot-free. That's but so this brought us to Harley's I would kill that thing anyway. Where we discovered there were hundreds of Sawyer's minions waiting for us that began to chase us down as we tried to power the gate to Sawyer's mainframe, which, when successfully doing, in the next room brought us to Sawyer's brain, the final part of his body that remained. We walked up to it and, like what we did with the other body parts, shut it down, ending and killing the rest of Harley Sawyer. Most importantly, after this, he left behind none other than the Omni Hand. We collected the hand and returned to repair the safe haven generator guided by Ollie. It was saved, and now it was time for Poppy's mission. Doey went out of the safe haven to distract the prototype, and we went down to the factory's foundation to place the explosives on a bunch of red smoke pipes that would burst when the dynamite was set off. However, after placing these on the way out, Doey panically confronted us as he had seemingly lost the prototype and didn't know where he went. Although, unfortunately, it wouldn't take long for him to find out, as behind him, he saw that the safe haven, the place he had been protecting from the prototype for decades, had been invaded and exploded by 1006, killing everything. We then walked back to Safe Haven to see Doey grieving over all of the children he tried to save now gone. I gotta say, Doey is outrageously mature for being a combination of 3 different children. Like, at the end of the day, that is what Doey is these 3 different children in one Doey body, but he's kind of like, he seems like a nice uncle, you know?
know? He was just trying to help everybody.
Fully snap into his
Maybe not now, though.
mode again, blaming us for causing all of this. From here, he would transform into a demonic salamander state, chasing us down the entire factory while we were eventually left with no option but to kill the enraged experiment, freezing his body using the liquid nitrogen cans left down here from the construction workers and sawing down on the frozen parts to tear him into bits, leading to a giant crusher room where Doughy was frozen one more time and would be killed by the machine.
This game,
but
bro?
not
This
before
is insane.
he snapped back into himself and gave us one final apology for his outburst.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
From here, we fall into events where none other than Poppy, Kissy, and Ollie were down there. They had all survived the prototype's wrath and were back together. However, while Poppy was talking to Ollie, his tone suddenly changed.
Ollie, something's gone horribly wrong. The safe haven...
Shelf ventilation block B6. Is this where you are, Poppy?
From childlike and friendly to evil and twisted.
Is it the prototype the whole time?
At some point, the Ollie Poppy knew was gone and was replaced by the prototype himself mimicking Ollie's voice. And while listening in on everything we were doing throughout the factory, he revealed he intercepted all of the explosives we were trying to use to blow the place up and had strapped them to the ventilation area we were trapped in. However, first, he wanted Poppy again, telling her to come home back into the case he had put her in years ago, inciting panic in her once again, where despite being our friend, she ran off like she's done for years, betraying us and leaving us and Kissy alone. The prototype then blew the vent up. Kissy would try to hold us up from the rubble, but her injured arm fell off and we were left all alone. When getting up from the fall though,
bro, all of these, every single one of these guys suck. They're all two-faced. None of them are loyal. None of them have good morals or ethics. Every single one of them suck. Dude, blow up the whole thing. I don't care about any of them. They all are terrible.
In front of us, we saw there was none other than the Playtime Co. labs, the place we used to work. From here, we began to walk into the laboratory area using the Omni Hand. Inside was a VHS tape similar to the one found when we first entered. Upon playing, Leith Pierre was introduced, but this time he sounded much more sinister.
Hi, my name is Leith Pierre, and I'm the head of innovation here at Playtime Co. If you're seeing this, you must be very, very lost.
Warning us about the security systems once again, as outside of the lab, from the darkness, it's revealed that none other than Huggy Wuggy was waiting for us.
I was actually gonna say earlier, Huggy Wuggy's gotta come back at some point. There's no way that's all that he is. There's no way that that's how he died. But here we go. Let's see what he's got.
Hungrier for revenge than ever, attacks the glass of the lab doors while more red smoke filled up the area, causing us to once again slowly pass out, ending the Poppy Playtime timeline. So that's all for the time.
That's it? Do we just die there? Oh my god. Wow. So we don't even escape. The place doesn't even explode. It felt like everything was teeing up to the whole place exploding. I thought for sure that's how it was going to end, but I guess not. There must be another game coming out, and maybe the movie will clarify everything and continue on the story. But man, oh man, am I invested now. This is crazy. I did not know there was this much lore around Poppy Playtime, and it seems pretty cool, I can't lie. It's definitely a game I want to try out. If you guys want me to play this game for myself, let me know by leaving a like and clicking that subscribe button. Anyway, boys, that's gonna be it. This was insane. Thanks for watching.